Hi, my name is Bree. I'm an ethical hacker, and we are just here to have a conversation. I want to talk about the value behind a cybersecurity degree. Now, this is just my opinion, but personally, I believe the most you get out of a cybersecurity degree is just the certificate. And I'm saying this from a point of view of somebody who has a certificate in Python, a diploma in information technology, and getting a bachelor's in cybersecurity. Like, I have gone through the entire pathway of cybersecurity education until a bachelor's. I am still yet to get a master's and a PhD, but I can't speak on behalf of that educational journey I've had. And it kind of feels as if the most I got from it was just the certificate, which is valuable in this day and age because you need those certificates to practically tick a box when companies are filtering out people. Like they filter out people based on certain credentials, like if you don't have specific certificates or if you don't have a bachelor's, like, they filter you out based on your credentials. However, I still believe you can build a cybersecurity degree without taking out millions and millions of loans just to pay for a cybersecurity degree. So why do I say this? I get so many messages from beginners, and all of them just have something that's very common, being they feel as if they have learned cybersecurity but aren't prepared to do cybersecurity, and I think the main reason why that is occurring is because schools just teach you theory, and cybersecurity is such a practical industry. It's like, and I give this example most of the time, like if you have two photographers, right? One photographer has a portfolio of the photos they've done in the past, and the other photographer just has credentials, like 4 to 5 credentials. The chances of the photographer who actually can prove their skills has a higher likelihood of getting a job or progressing in their career compared to somebody who just has the certificates. However, but the person with the credentials is more likely to land interviews and stuff like that because, again, I said there's still the filtering process that's going on. But to keep the job, that's another story. Now, in terms of my cybersecurity degree, I'm only left with like four more months before I finish it. And I just want to say some of the things they teach are just so outdated, and I kind of understand why the value behind a cybersecurity degree is slowly diminishing rather. And I'm not telling you guys not to go and study, like go and study by all means. Like I said, it has its benefits, like passing some filtering sections and stuff like that, but some concepts like being taught in school literally don't even apply to the real world anymore. Like we were being taught about buffer overflows, and you know what, let's search that. First of all, let me explain to you what a buffer overflow is. Let's see. What is... Okay, let's check Cloudflare. It's a really credible resource. So what is a buffer overflow? It's basically an anomaly that occurs. So what is a buffer overflow? Buffer overflow is an anomaly that occurs when software writing data to a buffer overflows the buffer's capacity, resulting in adjacent memory locations being overwritten. In other words, too much information is being passed into a container that does not have enough space, and that information ends up replacing data in adjacent containers. So in short, it's like, a buffer overflow vulnerability is a very, I wouldn't like to say it doesn't exist anymore, but it's very outdated, and a lot of technology and modern day software actually can fix this problem, but these are the things we were being taught in school. Let's go back to Google and search are buffer overflows still relevant? Okay, let's see. Okay, yes, buffer overflows are still highly relevant and remain a critical security concern in 2026, even though they have been a well-known threat for decades. While modern defenses have made them harder to exploit, they are still a top cause of remote code execution. Okay, so yes, obviously the vulnerability still exists. I'm not denying the fact that it still exists, but it's a bit old and outdated. Yeah, so the chances of stepping into the real world and actually dealing with some of these threats firsthand, the odds of you getting a ransomware breach compared to a buffer overflow is it's so much bigger. Like the ratio is very large, and it's good to understand these concepts, but in my opinion, I don't feel like that necessarily prepared me for the real world. And if you actually pay attention to how the cybersecurity field works, like every time a new attack comes out, people, obviously, like people on the defensive side of cybersecurity, quickly find ways to prevent such attacks, and once the attackers find out their previous attack methods they're not like successful and they're not working, they're gonna come up with a new method, to breach a company or like an app or whatever for their own reasons. So it's constantly evolving. It's basically a game of cat and mouse, and you need to also evolve at that rapid speed and that pace. But if you're being taught concepts that are very old and outdated, but still relevant, I've not said they're not relevant, it makes it a bit harder. How do you find? Like, I kid you not, I've learned so much more from 3 capture the flag challenges than I have in my 4 years of studying some outdated theory. And I say this because, also, let's say you read a book that gives you a step-by-step guide on how to do something in the cybersecurity field. Sometimes you can follow that step-by-step, but since computers are so unique and situations are so unique, like maybe some settings you have, the person who's giving you those instructions doesn't have, or let's say your computer's memory is smaller than the person giving you instructions computer memory is. So you end up getting very, very unique challenges at times compared to the instructions you're reading. So I think just like there's no amount of reading that ever helps you do things like step by step. Like, it's not like building an IKEA table at all. Okay, so can you still build a cybersecurity profession without a degree? 100% yes. I genuinely have met like multiple people in the industry who just took the certifications path. Like they just went and got some of these industry recognized certificates like CompTIA plus security, or the CCNA, or just basically certifications that boosted their career, and they got the job and they built a portfolio, showed the world what they can do, and they genuinely ended up getting really like high paying jobs and stuff like that. So I don't necessarily, especially if you're in a position where taking out loans for your studies would put you in a very stuck position, I would just recommend the certifications path. Like, but by all means, I said the cybersecurity degree definitely has its own benefits. Okay, so now you know this in terms of some people are genuinely out here building cybersecurity degrees without necessarily going to school, but taking some form of education like the certificates. It makes the industry a lot more competitive than it used to be. You know, everybody wants that 6-figure remote job. So it makes the industry highly competitive. So how do you exactly stand out in such an industry, and how do you find a competitive advantage? I genuinely believe that I'm such a big advocate for creating portfolios, staying visible, and building publicly. Like, everybody on this entire planet is super, super, super passionate. Everybody is super, super capable, you know. But if it's not visible, it genuinely, it's harder to prove, you know. In terms of hiring, it's all about risk, you know. People are evaluating whether you're risky or not. But having a portfolio where it just demonstrates like what you're capable of massively gives you a competitive advantage. And not just creating a portfolio and then just keeping it private, you know. Nobody's going to find you in your house. You post it publicly on like any social media platform you choose. Posting publicly increases your opportunities. And it also, you know, if you end up getting an opportunity that isn't that suitable for you, you can just say no and probably get a new opportunity because you're very visible to the right people. Now, another challenge I've obviously, like I've been hearing a lot, is the fact that a lot of graduates who took the cybersecurity degree pathway aren't able to find jobs, or they are not necessarily getting hired. A lot of companies nowadays, since AI came out, are replacing a lot of humans, whether you have 15 years of experience or basically you're just starting out. Like, AI has seriously disrupted the market for good and for bad. If like, I like to think about it in terms of, if somebody who has a lot of years of experience isn't able to get a job, you as a graduate, it's going to be much, much, much harder, because of course AI can do entry-level jobs at a faster rate with more volume. So yeah, like, I think it's just about being very strategic, only showing up as a graduate with a black and white resume, and that's all you're showing, and that's all you have to prove. You're putting yourself in a very risky position. Very, very, very risky position, you know. Go outside, talk to people, learn some skills outside school. And I feel like that's like very common, especially with Gen Z. Like, it can be tough to somewhat thrive in today's market, but I think it's just about staying highly adaptable. The industry moves really, really fast, and new defenses, new attack methods are coming out like virtually every week. So just staying connected, adapting to that environment, and just understanding where to position yourself. There are so many programs created just to help individuals. But yeah, don't quit. Don't quit. And I'm gonna leave that question to you, whether you would rather pursue certification only pathway, or you're gonna step into the bachelor's of cybersecurity pathway, or do both. I think a good option is a combination, but obviously depending on your circumstance, your financial situation, and etc. Yeah. Thank you for giving me your attention. I'll see you in the next video.